when it comes to the Vikings is that they're not great. 3-4 here with the Vikings losses in 2021 versus 2025. I want you to expand on that take, though. They're not great. Ryan Wilson, what are you seeing?
I think that grimaced face of Carson Wentz sort of says it all. That throw encapsulates Carson Wentz's face as well, the interception there. And look, this isn't all on Carson Wentz. There's a reason he started for 6 teams in 6 seasons. He was not meant to be the starting quarterback. But the offense can't get going. They are banged up along the offensive line. They had 3rd and 4th teamers in there trying to protect Carson Wentz, and it went exactly how you thought it would go, horribly. He was sacked 5 times, hit just about every single time he dropped back. The defense had 0 answers for Justin Herbert in that run game they got going for L.A. Kevin O'Connell said afterwards, this starts with me, and we didn't coach these guys up and get them ready to play. I would agree with that based on the performance we saw. There are no quick solutions because Sam Darnold's not walking through that door. I can't believe we're going to say this, Emily. Daniel Jones is not walking through that door, who they had on the roster last year. They're stuck with they got to figure out who J.J. McCarthy is, and if not, whether you can win and find a way to win with a banged-up Carson Wentz.
But you think the fix, though, is the Vikings potentially trading for a quarterback. And I see here your eye on Kirk Cousins. Why do you think that he would help in this situation? I know Carson Wentz would love him to have to stand behind that line right now, but how can he help the Vikings?
Yeah, maybe Kirk Cousins doesn't want to be behind that line, as it were. So, look, we can't get Sam Darnold, who was there last year. We can't get Daniel Jones. Let's dial it back before those 2 guys got there and get Kirk Cousins. And this is an indictment on the offensive line. It's an indictment on Carson Wentz's play to this point. It's sort of an indictment on J.J. McCarthy, and it's unfair in some sense. He hasn't played in 22 of the 24 games that he's been healthy to play the last 2 years. He's only played in those 2 games, those 8 quarters to start this season, and only one of those quarters was high-level football. This is a long shot. It's a shot in the dark. Whatever other cliche you want to use about trying to salvage this season for the Minnesota Vikings. But when Kirk was healthy before that Achilles injury, he was one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL. Now, that was over 2 years ago, so you're sort of hoping against hope. But if you're not sold that J.J. McCarthy is healthy and or able to fix things immediately, this is something that I think you consider. But it's desperate times call for desperate measures when you're picking up the phone call in Atlanta about bringing Kirk Cousins back to Minnesota.
Man, to be a fly on the wall when that phone call happens, I would love to hear what the Vikings organization would say to Kirk Cousins. But no matter who is playing quarterback, you mentioned it, they got to fix that offensive line. And you think it starts at the center position. Who could they potentially add as the trade deadline approaches?
Yeah, so trade deadline's November 4th, so we're closely approaching that. Ethan Pocic, the center out of Cleveland, is in the final year of his deal. And look, Ryan Kelly has not been able to stay healthy because of concussions, and they were down to the 3rd center last night. And Carson Wentz can attest that the 3rd center was playing because he was struggling from start to finish. Ethan Pocic is a solid player. Kwesi Adofo-Mensah, the GM in Minnesota, knows him because he was in Cleveland when Pocic was there. And that could be a short-term solution to a problem if Ryan Kelly isn't able to bounce back from the concussions as quickly as possible, or it's just backup insurance in case Kelly goes down again. Because, look, there are only 53 roster spots, but you can never have enough offensive linemen to protect a quarterback, whoever it is. And Carson Wentz and his left shoulder can affirm that last night was tough sledding for 60 minutes of football for him.
Yeah, not just center. You propose another trade on the offensive line, making sense, of course, since Wentz was sacked 5 times last night. Can't mention that enough. How about Bears tackle Braxton Jones? Why do you think the Vikings need help from him here?
Yeah, he's not playing a lot because he lost his job to a rookie undrafted free agent. The other thing is he has started in recent years. He has battled injuries, which is sort of a recurring theme when we talk about the offensive line in Minnesota. Christian Darrisaw had the ACL last season, came back, only played 9 snaps last night. Right tackle Brian O'Neill had to leave the game with a reoccurring knee injury. So Braxton Jones, again, we're talking about depth and guys that can fill in case of emergency. Braxton Jones provides that when he's healthy. He played at a pretty high level the last few years for the Chicago Bears. Just lost his job this year, and sometimes we have the conversation, Emily, about maybe a change of scenery can help a player find out who he was previously. Hope ain't a plan, but you're hoping that guys like Braxton Jones can make his way to a new destination and play at a high level if they need him to, because things are dire along that offensive line for the Vikings. And again, we keep saying it. Last night was full proof of how bad things are when guys are injured and you can't protect your quarterback.
I'm curious, when it is that obvious, something that we all watched in primetime on Thursday Night Football, that they need help on that offensive line, how does that affect maybe their leverage when they're making some of those phone calls to bring in offensive linemen?
I'm smirking, Emily, because I've had this conversation with Rick Spielman, the former Vikings GM, when Teddy Bridgewater got hurt back his second or third season in August, and they lost him for the year, and they desperately needed a quarterback. Guess who knew that? Everyone in the NFL. So when Rick called Howie Roseman in Philadelphia to inquire about Sam Bradford, Howie said, yes, you can have him for a first-round pick. And Rick's like, I don't have a choice. We need a quarterback. They traded a first-round pick for Sam Bradford. Had a really good season that year, but you are over a barrel. You do not have very much in the way of options, and the teams that you're calling clearly know that because they saw the same game on Thursday night that you and I watched.
Yeah, and it wasn't just on Thursday night, Ryan. I mean, they have 28 sacks they've given up, which is 30th in the NFL, behind just the Titans and the Jets, which is not where you want to be associated with. But it's not just the offensive line. They could use some help on the defensive side of the ball. The Bengals linebacker Logan Wilson is somebody who has already outwardly requested a trade. Why do you think the Vikings are a good fit for him?
So Ivan Pace Jr. has been a really good player. They have Blake Cashman, of course, and Eric Wilson, and they're all solid, but they haven't played up to the level consistently play in and play out that we've seen in recent years in that Brian Flores defense. Logan Wilson wants out of Cincinnati. He has been benched there as the team captain, and he's only 29 years old, and he's a really good athlete. And I think he adds that athleticism to the second level that can perhaps help not only against the run, but in passing situations. Again, maybe you're putting a Band-Aid on a much bigger wound that requires something more than a Band-Aid and maybe surgery in terms of this defense in Minnesota, especially the way they played last night. But it gets you going in the right direction. They got to figure out how to stop the run. They could not do that last night, and they've struggled to stop teams from throwing the football as well. So Logan Wilson in the middle of that defense gets you to where you're going. Maybe not the final destination, but it's certainly a step in the right direction.
Also, another linebacker, Bradley Chubb, maybe makes some sense here. Where do you see their likelihood of potentially landing him, at least picking up a linebacker wherever they can find it?
Yeah, no, that's right. And the thing is, the Dolphins, you would imagine, are going to be answering every single phone call because their season certainly feels lost at this point. Bradley Chubb would give them some juice off the edge in Minnesota. Dallas Turner, the former first-round pick, continues not to be the guy that they had hoped they'd gotten, and he can certainly get there. He's still young. We just haven't seen it. He and Jonathan Grenard have 2 sacks each as edge rushers. The leading sacker is Jalen Richmond, who has 3 sacks, and he plays defensive line. So you have to find a way to get pressure, and you can't always do it blitzing 5 and 6 guys, which we've seen Brian Flores have success with, but it's been less successful this year than in previous years. And I think if you can get home with 4 edge rushers, that helps the linebackers in the secondary, and Bradley Chubb can get you there. But again, I mean, you can't use every single draft pick to meet these trade deadline demands. You got to figure it out with some of the players you have. But these could be 2 or 3 options, maybe, Emily, that you think about as the deadline approaches here on November 4th.
Yeah, it's not over yet for the Vikings, but they could certainly use some help on both sides of the ball. Ryan Wilson helping us out with some potential options. Get excited for another Sunday on CBS. We've got some big games in the 1 o'clock window, headlined by the Bears at Ravens, and in the afternoon, Cowboys Broncos, and an AFC South matchup between the Titans and Colts. You can watch all these games on CBS or stream them on Paramount+.